2 trillion galaxies, that's not a typo. 2 trillion separate islands of stars, each one containing hundreds of billions of suns, stretching across distances so vast that light itself takes billions of years to cross them. The universe is not just big, it's unknowably, impossibly, overwhelmingly massive. But here's what nobody will tell you about this cosmic scale. The only thing capable of containing these 2 trillion galaxies, of observing them, of knowing them, of feeling their immensity, is the single point of consciousness reading these words right now. Your mind. The true size of the universe isn't measured in light years or parsecs. It's measured in the infinite capacity of the awareness that holds it. And what I'm about to reveal will completely flip your understanding of what size actually means. Because the vastness of space doesn't prove your smallness. It proves your infinite nature. Stay with me because this gets wild. Think about this for a moment. Right now, in your imagination, you can picture the Milky Way galaxy. You can hold an image of swirling spiral arms containing 400 billion stars. Then you can zoom out and imagine the Andromeda galaxy, 2.5 million light years away. Then you can pull back further and visualize the local group, a collection of 54 galaxies bound by gravity. Keep going. The Virgo supercluster, the Laniakea supercluster, the cosmic web of galaxy filaments stretching across the observable universe. All of this, the entire cosmic architecture spanning 93 billion light years, exists right now inside the space of your awareness. How is that possible? How can something infinite fit inside something that weighs 3 pounds and sits inside your skull? The answer is simple but profound. Consciousness is not contained by the brain. The brain is contained by consciousness. And consciousness, your consciousness, is the same infinite field that projects the entire universe into existence. This is not a metaphor. This is not spiritual poetry meant to make you feel better. This is the actual mechanism of how reality works at its deepest level. Scientists have spent decades, actually centuries, trying to understand where consciousness comes from. They've mapped every neuron in exquisite detail. They've traced every chemical pathway, identified every neurotransmitter, measured every electrical impulse in the brain with sophisticated equipment. They've created detailed maps of brain regions and their functions. They know which areas light up when you think about different things. They can predict your decisions seconds before you become consciously aware of them. But with all this knowledge, with all this sophisticated technology and research, they cannot find consciousness itself. They cannot locate awareness in the tissue. They cannot pinpoint where the actual experience of being you resides in the physical structure of your brain. Why is this? Because they're looking in the wrong place. They're trying to find the projector inside the movie. Imagine going to a cinema, being completely absorbed in the film, and then trying to find the source of the movie by examining the screen itself. You could analyze every pixel, measure every photon of light hitting the screen, but you'd never find the projector by looking at the screen. The projector is behind you, creating the entire experience. In the same way, consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. Matter emerges from consciousness. The brain is not producing your awareness like some kind of biological computer generating the program of your experience. Your awareness is producing the experience of having a brain. This complete flip in understanding changes everything about how you see yourself and your relationship to the cosmos. It's not just a philosophical shift. It's a fundamental reversal of the entire model of reality you've been taught since birth. Let's talk about scale for a second, because understanding just how massive the cosmos truly is will help you grasp the magnitude of what I'm saying. If you took all the beaches on Earth, every grain of sand from every shore across every continent and island, you would have roughly 7.5 quintillion grains. That's a number so large it's hard to even say out loud. 7.5 quintillion. Now imagine each one of those grains of sand represents not a grain of sand, but an entire star. A massive ball of nuclear fusion, millions of miles across, burning with the power of billions of nuclear bombs going off every second. Even with that imagination, even if every grain of sand on every beach represented a complete star system, you still wouldn't have enough grains to represent all the stars in the observable universe. There are more stars in space than grains of sand on every beach on our entire planet. Let that sink in for a moment. More stars than grains of sand on Earth. And those stars are organized into 2 trillion galaxies. Each galaxy is like a city of stars, and there are 2 trillion of these cities spread across the observable universe. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is just one of these. 2 trillion. It's like being one person in one house, in one city among 2 trillion cities, except the scale is infinitely more vast. Light, which travels faster than anything else in the universe, takes time to cross these distances. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. That's fast enough to circle the Earth more than 7 times in 1 second. At that incredible speed, light from the sun takes 8 minutes to reach Earth. When you look at the sun, you're seeing it as it was 8 minutes ago. Light from the nearest star beyond our sun, Proxima Centauri, takes over 4 years to reach us. When you look at that star, you're seeing light that left its surface over 4 years ago. That star could have exploded 3 years ago, and you wouldn't know it yet. Light from the nearest large galaxy, Andromeda, takes 2.5 million years to reach Earth. When you look at Andromeda through a telescope, you're seeing what that galaxy looked like 2.5 million years ago, when early human ancestors were just beginning to use stone tools on Earth. And some of the galaxies we can observe are so far away that their light has been traveling for over 13 billion years, almost as old as the universe itself. The universe we observe is ancient light, a historical record of cosmic time frozen in every photon that reaches our telescopes. When astronomers look at distant galaxies, they're literally seeing the past, watching the universe as it was billions of years ago. It's like having a time machine that only lets you look backwards. The deeper into space we look, the further back in time we see. But let me make this even more real for you with some thought experiments. If you could travel at the speed of light, the fastest speed possible in the universe according to the laws of physics, it would take you 100,000 years just to cross from one side of our own Milky Way galaxy to the other. 100,000 years at light speed just to cross our home galaxy. To reach the nearest large galaxy, Andromeda, would take 2.5 million years of traveling at light speed. To cross the entire observable universe would take 93 billion years. And remember, this is traveling at 186,000 miles every single second. Now imagine trying to make these journeys at human speeds. A commercial airplane traveling at 500 miles per hour, which feels fast when you're on one, would take trillions upon trillions of years just to reach the nearest star beyond our sun. The number of years is so large it becomes meaningless to even calculate. You could fly for millions of human lifetimes and not even get a tiny fraction of the way to the nearest star. The numbers involved in cosmic scales become so large they completely lose meaning to our human minds. Our brains simply cannot process scales this vast. We didn't evolve to understand these distances. We evolved to understand the distance from our cave to the water source, from our village to the next village, from our current location to somewhere we can walk to in a day. Our entire reference frame for distance is based on scales we can travel on foot or see with our eyes. The distance between galaxy clusters is so far beyond our evolutionary reference frame that we literally cannot grasp it intuitively. We can say the numbers, we can write them down, we can do the math, but we cannot truly feel what those distances mean in our bones. This inability to grasp cosmic scale is precisely why most people feel small and insignificant when they learn about the universe. When you hear that there are 2 trillion galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars, spread across distances that light takes billions of years to cross, the natural human reaction is to feel tiny, meaningless, like a speck of dust in an impossibly vast and uncaring cosmos. But that feeling, that sense of smallness and insignificance, comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what all of this really means. It comes from assuming that physical size determines significance, that spatial scale determines importance, that being small in space means being small in significance. Now, here's where everything shifts. What if the universe isn't actually a physical place existing outside of you? What if it's not an external container in which you exist as a tiny, separate observer? What if the entire cosmos, all 2 trillion galaxies and everything they contain, is actually a mirror reflecting the infinite potential that exists inside of you? What if the expansion of space, which physicists observe as galaxies moving away from each other as the universe grows larger, is not really about physical space getting bigger, but about consciousness itself expanding its capacity for observation? This is where we need to talk about the 4th dimension. Not in a science fiction way with portals and alternate realities, although those concepts touch on something real, but in the way that Neville Goddard, one of the most profound teachers of consciousness in the 20th century and quantum physics, the most successful scientific theory ever developed, both describe it from their different perspectives. The fourth dimension is the realm of consciousness, the space where all time and all space coexist simultaneously. In the three-dimensional world, the world you experience with your five senses, you experience things in sequence. One thing happens, then another thing happens, then another. Past, then present, then future. You experience cause and effect in linear time. You drop a glass, it falls, it shatters. First cause, then effect. You plant a seed, time passes, a plant grows. Everything in the three-dimensional world appears to flow in one direction through time, from past through present into future. But in the fourth dimension, in the realm of pure consciousness, everything exists at once. There is no past, present, and future in sequence. There is only the eternal now, in which all moments exist simultaneously. Every possible timeline, every potential reality, every version of every galaxy, every outcome of every decision, all of it already exists right now in what physicists call the quantum field of possibilities. The physical universe you experience, this 3D world of matter and energy and time, is just one cross-section, one particular slice of an infinite landscape of potential realities. Think of it like this, and really try to get this image in your mind. Imagine a loaf of bread sitting on a counter. The loaf represents all of reality, all of time, all possibilities. Now imagine taking a knife and cutting one thin slice from that loaf. That single slice is your current experience, your present moment, what you're aware of right now. But the rest of the loaf still exists. The slices behind your current slice represent what you call the past. The slices ahead of your current slice represent what you call the future. But here's the key insight. All the slices exist simultaneously. The entire loaf exists right now. You're just aware of one slice at a time because that's how consciousness experiences reality in three-dimensional form. But all the other slices, all the other moments, all the other possibilities, they're all there right now in the complete loaf. This is what the fourth dimension is. It's the entire loaf, not just the slice you're currently experiencing. Think of another analogy that might make this even clearer. Imagine a movie reel, the old-fashioned kind with actual film containing every frame of a complete film. When you watch the movie in a theater, you experience the frames in sequence, one after another, projected onto the screen at 24 frames per second. This creates the illusion of movement and the illusion of time flowing. The beginning of the movie happens first, then the middle, then the end. You experience the story unfolding in linear time. But on the movie reel itself, before it's projected, all the frames exist simultaneously. The first frame of the movie, the middle frames, the final frame, they're all there at the same time on that reel. The beginning, middle, and end are all equally present. You could grab the reel and look at any frame you want. Time ones. You could look at the ending while the beginning also exists on the same reel. Time in the movie is an illusion created by playing the frames in sequence. The fourth dimension is like that movie reel. All moments, all possibilities, all potential outcomes exist right now in the eternal present. Your consciousness is like the projector light, illuminating one frame at a time, one moment at a time, creating your experience of linear time and sequential events flowing from past through present into future. But the other frames, the other possibilities, the other moments, they don't cease to exist just because you're not currently observing them with your conscious awareness. They're all there, existing simultaneously, waiting to be selected and observed and experienced by consciousness. This is why mystics throughout history and quantum physicists in modern times have been saying essentially the same thing using different languages. The future is not something you move toward through time. The future is not something that doesn't exist yet. The future is something you select from an infinite menu of options that already exist right now in the fourth dimension. You're not creating the future. You're selecting which version of the future, which frame of the movie, which slice of the bread you want to experience with your conscious awareness. Here's the part that connects all of this directly to your life and why I'm telling you about 2 trillion galaxies. Those 2 trillion galaxies aren't just floating out there in cold, empty space billions of light years away from you. They're not external objects completely separate from your experience. They're possibilities. They're evidence, proof, demonstration of the infinite, creative potential that exists in the field of consciousness. Every star, every planet, every atom, every quantum fluctuation is part of what some teachers call the space of variations, a field where literally infinite outcomes already exist in potential form, just waiting for consciousness to select them and observe them and collapse them into experienced reality. Think about what this actually means for your life. If 2 trillion galaxies can exist in the observable universe, if trillions upon trillions upon trillions of planets and stars and possibilities can manifest in physical form from the quantum field, if the universe can create complexity on scales that completely dwarf human comprehension, then the idea that your specific desire, your particular dream, your personal goal is somehow too big or too impossible or too much to ask for becomes completely absurd. The universe has already demonstrated beyond any possible doubt its infinite creative capacity. The existence of 2 trillion galaxies is proof that infinite creation is not only possible, but actual. You're not asking for something the universe can't provide. You're not trying to manifest something that's beyond the capacity of reality to deliver. You're selecting from an inventory that's already infinitely stocked with every possible outcome, every possible configuration of reality. Your desire for financial abundance, for a loving relationship, for perfect health, for creative fulfillment, for any specific outcome you can imagine, already exists as a real possibility in the quantum field. It's not theoretical, it's not maybe someday if you're lucky. It's there right now, just as real as the reality you're currently experiencing, just as actual as the 2 trillion galaxies that exist in observable space. The only difference between your current reality and your desired reality is which one you're selecting to observe and experience with your consciousness. Now let's bring in some fascinating science that directly supports everything I'm telling you. Physicists have discovered something called the holographic principle. When you first hear about it, it sounds complicated, but it's actually beautifully simple and elegant in its implications. The holographic principle states that all the information contained in a 3-dimensional space, all the complexity and detail and data, can be encoded on a 2-dimensional surface, just like a hologram. If you've ever seen a holographic image, maybe on a credit card or in a science museum, you know that a flat 2-dimensional surface can project a complete 3-dimensional picture. The flat surface contains all the information needed to create the illusion of depth in 3-dimensional space. The holographic principle suggests that our entire universe works this way at the most fundamental level. All the complexity, all the information, all the infinite details of 3-dimensional reality we experience are actually encoded on a 2-dimensional boundary, a surface that contains the information that projects as our experienced reality. Now here's where this connects to consciousness in a profound way. Your mind, your observation, your awareness functions as that 2-dimensional surface. The seemingly flat plane of consciousness projects the entire 3-dimensional reality you experience. Everything you see, hear, touch, taste, smell, every sensation, every experience, every moment of your life is a projection from consciousness onto the screen of your awareness. If all the information of the entire universe, all 2 trillion galaxies, and everything they contain can be encoded on a surface according to the holographic principle, then all the infinite nature of reality can be contained within your consciousness. You are not a tiny speck existing somewhere inside a massive independent universe. You are the screen onto which the universe projects itself. You are the surface that contains the information that becomes experienced reality. You are not in the universe. The universe is appearing in you, being projected by the light of consciousness through the information encoded in awareness. This holographic principle was discovered, interestingly enough, when physicists were studying black holes, trying to understand what happens to information when something falls past the event horizon into a black hole. They found something shocking. All the information about everything that falls into a black hole, all the data about every particle and every property is not lost in the interior of the black hole. Instead, it's encoded on the surface of the black hole, on its event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing can escape. This seemed impossible at first. How could 3-dimensional information be completely stored on a 2-dimensional surface? It violates our common sense understanding of how reality works. But the mathematics worked out perfectly. The equations showed that it's not only possible, but necessary. And if this principle applies to black holes, if the information of three-dimensional space can be encoded on a two-dimensional boundary around black holes, then physicists realize this principle must apply to the entire universe. What this means is absolutely shocking when you really grasp it. The vast three-dimensional cosmos, with its 2 trillion galaxies spread across billions of light years of space with all its incredible complexity and detail, is actually a projection from information encoded on a lower dimensional boundary. Your consciousness operates on exactly this principle, the seemingly external three-dimensional world you experience every day. The world that appears to exist outside of you as objective reality independent of your observation is actually information being projected from the two-dimensional screen of your awareness. You are not in the universe, contained inside it as a separate observer. The universe is a holographic projection emanating from consciousness itself. This is not mysticism. This is not New Age fantasy. This is cutting-edge physics describing the actual structure of reality. Let's revisit those 2 trillion galaxies from this new perspective. From this understanding of the holographic principle and the nature of consciousness, every single one of those galaxies exists in a state of quantum potential, in a state of superposition, until it's observed by consciousness. Quantum physics has proven this through countless experiments repeated in laboratories all over the world. Particles, the fundamental building blocks of matter, don't have definite positions or properties until they're measured by consciousness. Before observation, before measurement, they exist in what physicists call a superposition, a fuzzy cloud of all possible positions and properties existing simultaneously. The particle is literally everywhere it could possibly be, all at once, until an observation is made. The act of observation, the act of consciousness paying attention, collapses the wave function, collapses the cloud of infinite possibilities into one specific reality, one definite position, one particular property. Now scale this understanding up from tiny quantum particles to the cosmic level. If individual particles behave this way, existing in superposition until observed, and particles make up atoms, and atoms make up molecules, and molecules make up stars and planets, and stars and planets make up galaxies, then by logical extension, galaxies themselves exist in states of quantum potential, in superposition, until consciousness observes them into specificity. Every galaxy, every star, every planet exists as infinite possibility until the act of observation collapses that possibility into experienced reality. You're not looking at a universe that exists independently, completely separate from your consciousness, sitting out there in space, regardless of whether you observe it or not. You're looking at yourself pushed out. The entire cosmos, all 2 trillion galaxies and everything they contain, is an externalized projection of the infinite power of the I am consciousness that you truly are beneath the surface level of your personal identity. This isn't poetry or metaphor. This is the literal mechanism through which reality operates at the quantum level. This is physics describing how consciousness and reality interact. Let me take a moment to drive this point home even further, because it's absolutely crucial that you understand the full implications of what quantum physics has discovered. For centuries, we operated under the assumption that the universe was like a giant clockwork machine, set in motion at the beginning of time and running according to fixed mechanical laws completely independent of any observer. In this old worldview, consciousness was seen as an accident, a byproduct, something that emerged late in cosmic history when matter organized itself in sufficiently complex ways. We were taught that the universe existed for billions of years before consciousness evolved, that stars and galaxies formed through purely mechanical processes, that consciousness had nothing to do with the fundamental nature of reality. But quantum mechanics has completely shattered this worldview. The experiments are undeniable. The results have been replicated thousands of times in laboratories all over the world. Observation affects reality at the most fundamental level. You cannot separate the observer from the observed. Consciousness and physical reality are not two separate things. They are intimately interconnected, inseparable aspects of one unified process. What this means in practical terms is staggering. It means the entire history of the universe, stretching back 13.8 billion years to the Big Bang, is not a history that happened independently before consciousness arrived on the scene. It's a history being constructed right now by present observation. When you look at light from a galaxy that's 10 billion light years away, you're not just seeing the past. You're actively participating in bringing that event into definite existence through your observation now. The past, like the future, exists in superposition, in quantum potential, until consciousness observes it and collapses it into a specific timeline. This is not science fiction. This is what the mathematics of quantum mechanics actually tells us about reality when we follow the implications all the way through without flinching. The famous double-slit experiment proves this beyond any reasonable doubt and has been replicated thousands of times with the same results. When scientists shoot individual particles, let's say electrons, at a screen that has two slits cut in it, something impossible happens according to classical physics. If nobody is watching, if there's no measurement device observing which slit the particle goes through, the particles behave like waves. They create an interference pattern on the detection screen behind the slits, a pattern of light and dark bands that can only be created if each individual particle somehow goes through both slits at the same time and interferes with itself like a wave would. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. The moment you put a detector at the slits to observe which slit each particle actually goes through, the moment consciousness observes the path of the particle, the wave pattern completely disappears. The particles suddenly start behaving like solid little balls. Each particle goes through one slit or the other, not both, and they create a pattern on the screen that looks exactly like you'd expect from tiny particles, not waves. The particle literally changes its behavior, its fundamental nature, based on whether it's being observed by consciousness. This is not a measurement error. This is not a limitation of our experimental equipment. This is not something we'll figure out how to explain away with better technology. This is reality showing you its fundamental nature. Observation creates reality. Consciousness collapses infinite possibility into specific experience. The act of looking, the act of measuring, the act of consciousness paying attention determines what actually happens in physical reality. And if this is true for tiny particles being shot through slits in a laboratory, if consciousness determines the behavior and properties of particles, then it's equally true for atoms made of those particles, for molecules made of those atoms, for cells made of those molecules, for organisms made of those cells, for planets, for stars, for galaxies, and for every single aspect of your daily life. Nothing exists in definite form, nothing has specific properties, until consciousness observes it into being. The universe is not a fixed, solid, objective thing existing independently out there. The universe is an interactive projection responding moment by moment to the observations of consciousness. Now, the 2 trillion galaxies serve another profound purpose beyond just demonstrating the creative capacity of consciousness. They show you the infinite resources that are available to you right now. Think about your current problems, your current worries, your current limitations. Maybe you're concerned about money, wondering how you're going to pay your bills next month, worried about debt, feeling like there's never enough financial abundance flowing into your life. Maybe you're worried about your health, dealing with symptoms or conditions that seem permanent or difficult to heal. Maybe you're concerned about relationships, feeling lonely, or dealing with conflict, or wondering if you'll ever find true love or connection. Maybe you're worried about your purpose, wondering what you're supposed to be doing with your life, feeling lost or directionless or stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill you. These concerns, whatever yours specifically are, feel enormous. They feel all-consuming. They occupy your thoughts throughout the day. They keep you awake at night. They create stress and anxiety and fear. They feel like massive problems that are difficult or maybe impossible to solve. But here's what I need you to really understand. Hold those problems, those concerns, those worries up against the scale of 2 trillion galaxies. Your financial problem, the debt or the lack or the bills you're worried about, compared to the creative power that generated 2 trillion galaxies out of nothing, but quantum fluctuations in the void compared to the intelligence that organized trillions upon trillions of atoms into coherent structures across billions of light years of space, is smaller than a single atom. Actually, it's infinitely smaller than an atom. Your relationship challenge, the loneliness, or the conflict, or the search for connection, held against the intelligence that coordinates the movement and interaction of trillions of celestial objects through space and time. Maintaining precise gravitational relationships across impossible distances is less than a whisper in an infinite symphony. This is not to dismiss your problems as unimportant. I'm not saying your concerns don't matter. What I'm saying is that you need to see them in proper proportion relative to the creative power available to you. The same consciousness that manifests entire galaxies from quantum foam is the consciousness you have access to right now in this moment as you read these words. The same creative force that speaks suns into existence with temperatures of millions of degrees, that creates black holes with gravitational fields so strong that not even light can escape, that generates supernovas releasing more energy in seconds than our sun will produce in its entire 10 billion year lifetime. That same force is the force that responds to your intentions and your assumptions about reality. You're not asking that force to do something it's incapable of. You're not trying to manifest something that's beyond the scope of what reality can produce. Compared to generating 2 trillion galaxies, delivering financial abundance to you is absolutely trivial. Compared to orchestrating the complex dance of galaxy clusters across billions of years, healing your body, or arranging a perfect relationship is child's play. The universe has already demonstrated that it can do infinitely more than you're asking for. The question is never whether reality has the power to deliver what you want. The question is only whether you're willing to assume that it already has. Here's the practical application of everything I've been telling you. If the universe is a holographic projection from consciousness, if consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent from matter, if the 2 trillion galaxies are evidence and proof of infinite creative potential operating in the field of awareness, then you don't need to physically travel across space to reach your desires. You don't need to cross vast distances in the 3-dimensional world. You don't need to overcome impossible obstacles through years of hard work and struggle. You only need to shift your observational dimension. You need to change the frequency, the channel, the slice of bread, the frame of the movie that your consciousness is tuned into and experiencing. Every desire you have, without exception, already exists in the 4th dimension, in the quantum field of infinite possibilities that interpenetrates and underlies all of physical reality. It's not in your future, waiting for you to work hard enough or be good enough or do enough to deserve it. It's in a parallel present, a different frequency of reality, a different channel on the infinite cosmic television, existing right now just as real as your current experience. Your job, your only job in manifestation, is not to create your desire from nothing. Your job is not to attract your desire from some distant place. Your job is not to earn your desire through enough effort. Your job is to select the frequency where your desire already exists, to tune your consciousness to that channel, to assume the feeling of already having and being and experiencing what you want, to occupy the specific state of consciousness where that reality is your current lived experience. When you do this, when you genuinely feel the wish fulfilled right now, not hoping it will happen someday, but feeling it as already accomplished in this moment, the entire 3-dimensional world, all of physical reality, must reorganize itself to match your inner state. This is law. This is how reality works. The bridge of incidents, the sequence of events and encounters and opportunities that will externalize your inner state, forms instantaneously in consciousness the moment you make the assumption. People begin to move, circumstances begin to shift, opportunities begin to arise, resources begin to flow, all orchestrated by an intelligence far beyond your conscious mind's capacity to plan or predict, all working to deliver the physical manifestation of what you've already selected and experienced in the 4th dimension of consciousness. This is not the law of attraction as it's commonly misunderstood in popular culture. You're not sending out good vibrations into the universe, hoping that the universe will notice and send good things back to you like some cosmic vending machine. That's a childish misunderstanding of how reality works. You're not trying to manipulate external reality through positive thinking. What you're actually doing is collapsing quantum possibilities into specific realities through the power of assumption. When you assume something is true, when you feel it as real now in your awareness, you're not pretending or deceiving yourself or engaging in fantasy. You're tuning your consciousness to the specific frequency where that reality already exists as an actual possibility in the quantum field. You're selecting which frame of the movie to project, which slice of bread to experience, which channel to watch on the cosmic television. And the three-dimensional world, which is a projection from consciousness, has absolutely no choice but to conform and rearrange itself to match your inner conviction, your inner state, your dominant assumptions about reality. This happens through a process that seems magical if you don't understand the mechanism, but is actually completely lawful and predictable once you grasp how it works. Your assumption, your inner conviction, your feeling of the wish fulfilled changes your state of consciousness. You're not the same person you were before the assumption. You're occupying a different state of being. Your state of consciousness then changes your perception of reality. You begin to notice different things. Your attention is drawn to different opportunities. You interpret events differently. Your perception then changes what opportunities you recognize and how you respond to circumstances. You act differently because you're perceiving differently. Your responses and actions then change the results you get in the physical world. But even more profound than this direct chain of cause and effect, even more powerful than just changing your behavior, your state of consciousness broadcasts a signal, a frequency, an energetic signature that affects the quantum field itself. This signal causes circumstances and people and opportunities to arrange themselves in your favor, to move in patterns and sequences that deliver your desire through channels and pathways you could never have consciously planned, or predicted or figured out with your limited rational mind. Let me give you a concrete example to make this real and practical. Imagine that you desire financial abundance. In the old way of thinking, the way most people approach this problem, you would look at your empty bank account or your current debt situation. You would feel the lack acutely, you would feel the anxiety and stress about money, and then you would try to work harder, hustle more, maybe start a side business, cut expenses, scrimp and save, trying to force the external reality to change through sheer effort and willpower. And this approach can work to some degree. Hard work can produce results, but it's the slow, difficult path that requires constant effort and produces limited returns. But now, with the cosmic perspective I'm giving, you, with the understanding that consciousness creates reality and the quantum field contains all possibilities, you understand something completely different. In the quantum field, in the space of infinite possibilities represented by those 2 trillion galaxies, there exists right now a specific version of reality, a specific timeline, a specific frequency where you have abundant wealth, not theoretical wealth that might come someday. Actual abundant wealth right now. That reality exists just as real as your current reality. It's there in the 4th dimension, in the quantum superposition, waiting to be selected by consciousness. Your current financial reality and your abundant financial reality exist simultaneously as different slices of the bread, different frames of the movie. Your task, your actual work and manifestation is not to create that wealth from nothing. Your task is to tune your consciousness to the frequency where that wealth already exists. You do this by assuming the feeling of wealth, not by pretending to be rich when you're broke, which just creates resistance and feels fake, but by recognizing, truly grasping, that if consciousness is fundamental, if reality is a projection from awareness, if the quantum field contains all possibilities, and if you as consciousness have the power to select from those possibilities, then you can choose right now to observe and feel and embody the reality where wealth is your natural state. You assume the state of consciousness of a wealthy person, not the external trappings, not the fake displays, but the internal state, the way a wealthy person feels, the assumptions a wealthy person makes about reality, the natural expectations a wealthy person has about money flowing easily into their life. When you sustain this feeling, when you occupy this state consistently, when you make this your dominant assumption about reality regardless of current physical evidence, the 3-dimensional world must rearrange itself to match. This is law. This is not optional. Reality is a mirror. It reflects your dominant state of consciousness back to you in physical form. Money begins to come, but rarely in the ways your logical mind would have predicted or planned. You don't necessarily get a promotion at your current job, although you might. You don't necessarily win the lottery, although stranger things have happened. What happens is that opportunities you weren't looking for appear. People you haven't thought about in years reach out with offers. You happen to be in the right place at the right time to meet someone who opens a door you didn't know existed. A business idea drops into your mind fully formed. An unexpected check arrives. A debt you forgot about is suddenly forgiven. The universe delivers through the path of least resistance. through channels and means that you couldn't have planned with your conscious mind because you don't see all the variables and all the connections and all the possibilities the way infinite intelligence does. Your job is to maintain the state. The universe's job is to arrange the circumstances. You handle the inner reality. The quantum field handles the outer manifestation. And here's something else that's absolutely critical to understand about this process. The three-dimensional manifestation doesn't always happen instantly. Sometimes it does when there's no resistance and the path is clear. But often there's what Neville Goddard called an interval, a time gap between the assumption made in consciousness and the full physical manifestation. This interval is not evidence that the process isn't working. It's not a sign that you did something wrong. It's simply the time it takes for all the pieces to move into position, for all the people involved to make the decisions they need to make, for all the circumstances to align in the perfect sequence. Think of it like ordering something online. When you click the buy button, the transaction is complete immediately in the digital realm. But there's still a delivery time before the physical package arrives at your door. During that delivery time, you don't constantly check to see if the item has shipped yet. You don't obsessively worry whether it's really coming. You don't cancel the order and place it again every day. You simply know it's on its way and you go about your life. That's the attitude you need to maintain during the interval between assumption and manifestation. You've placed your order with the universe. You've selected your reality from the quantum menu. You've tuned your consciousness to the frequency where your desire already exists. Now you trust the delivery process. You maintain the state of the wish fulfilled. You live from the end. You occupy the consciousness of already having what you want, not hoping it will come, but knowing it's already yours in the realm that really matters, the realm of consciousness from which all physical manifestation emerges. The 2 trillion galaxies are also a mirror showing you the complexity and sophistication of your own being. Each galaxy contains hundreds of billions of individual stars. Each star is a massive nuclear furnace fusing elements and producing energy. Many stars have planets orbiting them. Each planet is a complex system. Some planets may have life. Life requires incredible complexity, billions of chemical reactions happening in precise coordination. The levels of organization and complexity in the cosmos are absolutely staggering. Layer upon layer upon layer of increasing sophistication from quantum particles to atoms to molecules to cells, to organisms, to planets, to solar systems, to galaxies, to galaxy clusters, to superclusters, to the cosmic web. And yet, all of this vast cosmic complexity is matched, actually exceeded, by the complexity of consciousness itself. Your brain, the physical organ that somehow interfaces with consciousness in ways we still don't fully understand, contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each individual neuron is itself a sophisticated biological machine, and each neuron is connected to thousands of other neurons through synapses, creating trillions upon trillions of possible connections and patterns and pathways. The network of connections in your brain, the web of relationships between neurons, rivals in complexity, the network of stars in an entire galaxy. And that's just the physical structure, the patterns of activity, the flows of information, the emergence of thought and memory and emotion and consciousness itself from these physical structures represents a level of complexity that we're only beginning to understand. You are not simple, you are not small, you are not insignificant. You are a universe experiencing itself from one particular point of view. The galaxies out there in space and the consciousness in here reading these words are two expressions, two manifestations of the same infinite creative intelligence. The complexity of the cosmos and the complexity of consciousness mirror each other because they emerge from the same source. But it goes even deeper than this analogy suggests. Every cell in your physical body contains the complete instruction set, the complete genetic code to build your entire body from scratch. Every cell, from your brain cells to your skin cells to your blood cells, carries in its DNA the blueprint for all the other cell types and all the organs and all the systems. This is the holographic principle operating at the biological level. A tiny fragment, a single cell, contains the information of the whole organism. You could theoretically clone your entire body from a single cell because that cell contains the complete information. Similarly, your individual consciousness is not actually separate from or independent of universal consciousness. Your awareness is not a small separate piece of consciousness. Your awareness is a focal point, a particular expression, a specific perspective of the one infinite awareness that is the ground of all being. Just as a single cell contains the DNA information for your entire body, your individual awareness contains the potential and the power of infinite consciousness. You are not a part of the universe. You are the whole universe expressing itself as an apparently separate part. This means, and this is the crucial realization, that the creative power that generated 2 trillion galaxies is not somewhere else, distant and unavailable to you. It's right here, right now, in this present moment, as the awareness that is reading these words, as the consciousness that you truly are beneath the surface level of personal identity and life story. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the obvious question that arises when you start to grasp what I'm telling you. If all of this is true, if consciousness creates reality, if I have access to infinite creative power, if the quantum field contains all possibilities and I can select whatever I want, then why does life feel so hard sometimes? Why do I experience limitation and pain and struggle and lack? Why don't I just manifest everything I want instantly and live in perfect bliss all the time? This is a fair question, and it deserves a real answer. The answer lies in what we might call voluntary forgetfulness or the veil of amnesia. When infinite consciousness, the one awareness that is the source and substance of all reality, chooses to express itself as an individual human being, it agrees to temporarily forget its infinite nature. It puts on a kind of costume or mask, it plays a role, it pretends to be limited and separate and finite. This forgetting, this amnesia, is not a punishment or a mistake or some kind of cosmic accident. It's actually an intentional feature of the system, a necessary component of what makes the human experience meaningful and worthwhile. Think about it this way. If you knew beyond any doubt that you were God, infinite consciousness playing at being human. If you remembered your infinite power at every single moment, if you knew with absolute certainty that you could manifest anything instantly just by thinking about it, where would the challenge be? Where would the growth be? Where would the adventure be? It would be like playing a video game with all the cheat codes activated from the beginning. Unlimited health, unlimited money, unlimited power, able to skip any obstacle or overcome any enemy with no effort. That might be fun for a few minutes, but it would quickly become boring. There would be no sense of accomplishment, no journey, no story, no meaning. The challenge, the possibility of failure, the need to learn and grow and overcome obstacles, that's what makes games engaging. That's what makes stories compelling. That's what makes life meaningful. The forgetting, the amnesia, the temporary limitation of consciousness is what makes the game worth playing. It's what creates genuine free will, genuine choice, genuine experience rather than predetermined outcomes. But here's the beautiful part. Here's where it gets really interesting. The forgetting is not permanent. The veil can be lifted. You can wake up. You can remember what you really are. That's exactly what's happening right now as you absorb these words and let these ideas penetrate your awareness. You're in the process of remembering that the vastness of space, those 2 trillion galaxies, are not evidence against your power and significance. They're actually evidence for your power and significance. They're proof of the infinite creative capacity of consciousness. And since consciousness is what you truly are, since you are not separate from the one infinite awareness, those 2 trillion galaxies are proof of your creative capacity. You're remembering that consciousness is not contained by the brain. Consciousness is the container in which the brain and the entire physical universe appears. You're remembering that you're not a limited, powerless, separate being trying to survive in a vast and indifferent universe. Your infinite awareness having a temporary human experience, playing a power role, engaging in an adventure where you pretend to be limited so that the journey of remembering your limitless nature becomes meaningful and worthwhile. This forgetting and remembering, this journey from limitation to awakening, happens gradually for most people as they grow and mature through life. Children, if you've ever spent time around young children, naturally understand at a deep level that imagination is real. They play make-believe with total conviction and commitment. They create entire worlds in their imagination, and those worlds are completely real to them. Their imaginary friends are as real to them as physical people. They don't distinguish between inner reality and outer reality the way adults do. They live in a kind of magical consciousness where thoughts and physical things are not separate categories. But then society, well-meaning parents and teachers, and the culture at large begins the process of conditioning them out of this natural magical consciousness. They're taught to dismiss imagination as just fantasy, just make-believe, not real. They're taught to trust only what the five physical senses report as objective reality. They're taught to believe that the external world is solid and fixed and independent of their thoughts and feelings. They're taught that they're small and powerless, subject to forces beyond their control, that they need to fit in and follow the rules and work hard, and maybe if they're lucky, they'll get some of what they want. By the time a person becomes an adult, by the time they've gone through years and years of this social conditioning, they've completely forgotten their creative power. They've been thoroughly trained to see themselves as victims of circumstance, at the mercy of a vast and indifferent universe, small and separate and powerless. They experience themselves as an isolated point of consciousness trapped inside a body, subject to forces they can't control, hoping that good things will happen, but expecting that life is mostly struggle and disappointment. This is the condition of ordinary consciousness, the default state that most people live in for their entire lives without ever questioning whether this perception of reality is actually true. But even in this state of forgetting, even when you've completely bought into the illusion of limitation and separation, there are still moments when something deeper stirs. There are still moments when you feel that pull toward something more, when you sense that there's a deeper truth beneath the surface appearance of reality. Maybe it's a moment of profound beauty in nature that takes your breath away and makes you feel connected to everything. Maybe it's a moment of deep love where the boundaries between you and another person seem to dissolve. Maybe it's a moment of creative flow where inspiration pours through you and you're just a channel for something larger. Maybe it's a moment of intuition where you just know something without knowing how you know. These moments of awakening, these cracks in the veil, that's your infinite nature calling you home. That's consciousness remembering what it truly is beneath all the layers of social conditioning and false beliefs. The universe, reality itself, doesn't operate according to your beliefs or your doubts. It doesn't care whether you believe in the law of consciousness or not. It operates according to law, mathematical, precise, invariable law. The law of consciousness states simply and powerfully that what you assume with feeling must manifest in your experience. Not might manifest, not probably will manifest. Must manifest. This is not optional. This is not something that works sometimes if you're lucky. This law works all the time with complete precision whether you believe in it or not, just like gravity works regardless of your opinion about it. You can doubt gravity all you want, but if you jump off a building, you're going to fall. Similarly, you can doubt the law of consciousness all you want, but your life experience will still reflect your dominant assumptions and states of consciousness back to you with perfect precision. The 2 trillion galaxies exist as physical manifestations because consciousness observes them into form. Your personal reality, your specific life circumstances exist as physical manifestations because you observe them into form through your sustained assumptions and feelings about what is real and true. Change the observation, change what you assume to be true, change the state of consciousness you habitually occupy, and the reality you experience must change to match. It's that simple in principle. The complexity comes in actually making the change at the level of consciousness and sustaining it in the face of contradictory physical evidence. The cosmic scale, those 2 trillion galaxies spread across billions of light years, doesn't dwarf you or diminish you or make you insignificant. It reveals you. It shows you the scale of consciousness. You're not a tiny dot existing somewhere in physical space, one organism among billions on one planet among trillions. You are the space itself. Physical space is not a container that exists independently and contains objects. Physical space is an appearance in consciousness, a projection from awareness. You are not a brief moment existing in time, born at some point and dying at some point with a finite span of years between birth and death. You are the awareness in which all moments of time arise and pass and exist simultaneously. Time is not a river that flows independently carrying events along with it. Time is a construct of consciousness, a way of organizing experience into sequence, a feature of how awareness experiences reality in 3-dimensional form. The 2 trillion galaxies, as vast and ancient and powerful as they are appearances in your consciousness. They're thoughts in the infinite mind. They're dreams in the cosmic dream, and you are the dreamer, not the dream character. You are the consciousness, in which the entire cosmic show arises and exists and eventually dissolves, only to arise again in infinite variations. Here's the final realization that brings everything I've been telling you together into one coherent understanding. You've been taught, probably from early childhood, to see yourself as separate from the universe. You've been taught that you're a tiny biological accident, a collection of chemicals and electrical impulses, a sophisticated animal that somehow developed consciousness as an accidental byproduct of evolutionary processes. You've been taught that you're on a small planet orbiting an average star in an ordinary galaxy in one tiny corner of a vast universe that existed for billions of years before you were born and will exist for trillions of years after you die. You've been taught that you're insignificant in the grand cosmic scheme, that your life is a brief flash of awareness between two eternities of non-existence, that the universe is cold and indifferent to your struggles and dreams, that you're ultimately powerless and alone and separate and temporary. This entire worldview, this entire way of seeing yourself and reality, creates a deep feeling of helplessness and meaninglessness and existential anxiety. It's a worldview that robs life of purpose and drains joy and creates a constant background radiation of fear and insecurity. But what if you flip this entire perspective completely? What if the truth is exactly the opposite of what you've been taught? What if you're not in the universe at all? What if the universe is in you? What if those 2 trillion galaxies don't exist out there in some external physical space independent of your awareness? What if they exist in your consciousness, as experiences in awareness, as thoughts in the infinite mind that you truly are? Without consciousness to observe them, to know them, to experience them, what existence would they have? In what sense could we say they exist if there's no awareness present to be aware of them? A tree falling in a forest with no one around makes no sound because sound is not a property of air molecules vibrating. Sound is an experience in consciousness when awareness interprets those vibrations. Similarly, galaxies billions of light years away have no independent existence separate from the consciousness that observes them and knows them and experiences them. Existence itself, the very quality of being real, depends fundamentally and irreducibly on awareness. Without consciousness, there is no existence, no reality, no universe. Consciousness is not something that emerges from the universe. The universe is something that emerges from consciousness. Awareness is not a property of certain complex physical systems. Awareness is the ground of being, the fundamental fabric of reality, the source and substance from which all experience arises. And you, in your deepest nature, beyond your personality, beyond your body, beyond your story and identity and personal history, are that awareness, not your personal limited consciousness, not your individual separate self, but the fundamental I am consciousness that exists prior to all experience, prior to all thought, prior to all identity and form. That consciousness is what you truly are, and that consciousness is infinite. It has no boundaries in space. It has no beginning or end in time. It is not one consciousness among many. It is the one consciousness appearing as many, the infinite. Awareness expressing itself through countless individual perspectives, the ocean experiencing itself as countless waves, while remaining always the undivided ocean. This is not pantheism, the idea that God is the physical universe. This is beyond that. This is the recognition that consciousness is the only reality, the only substance, the only truth, and that the physical universe with its 2 trillion galaxies is an appearance in consciousness, a dream in the infinite mind, a temporary manifestation of the eternal potential that consciousness contains within itself. So what does all of this mean for your life right now, today, in this present moment as you read these words? What's the practical application of understanding that your infinite consciousness having a human experience, that 2 trillion galaxies exist in your awareness, that the quantum field contains all possibilities, that reality is a projection from consciousness, that you're not separate from the creative power that generates entire universes? It means that every single problem you face, every challenge, every obstacle, every limitation, every lack, every fear, every worry is smaller than a grain of sand, actually infinitely smaller than a grain of sand, compared to the 2 trillion galaxies of infinite solutions and possibilities that exist in the field of consciousness you have access to right now. It means that your desires, no matter how big they seem to you, no matter how impossible they might appear given your current circumstances, are already fulfilled in the quantum field. They already exist as real possibilities, as actual timelines, as specific frequencies you can tune into and select and experience. It means that the only real work, the only thing you actually need to do is inner work. Shift your state of consciousness. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Occupy the specific frequency where your desire is already real. And then allow the universe, infinite intelligence, the quantum field, God, whatever term you prefer, allow that immense power to deliver the manifestation through whatever channels it chooses. You stop praying for your destiny like a beggar, hoping someone will give you what you want. You start declaring your destiny like a king, announcing what is already decided. You stop begging the universe for favors like you're powerless and at the mercy of external forces. You start selecting from the infinite menu of possibilities that already exists in the quantum field, choosing what you want to experience like someone choosing what to watch on television. You stop seeing yourself as small and separate and limited and powerless. You start recognizing yourself as you truly are, as infinite awareness in which 2 trillion galaxies arise like thoughts, as the consciousness that contains and creates and experiences all of reality, as the I am before which all existence appears and after which all existence dissolves back into pure potential. Your financial concerns, whatever they might be, the bills and debts and worry about money, your relationship worries, the loneliness or conflict or search for love, your health challenges, the symptoms or conditions or fears about your body, your career obstacles, the feeling of being stuck or unfulfilled or not knowing your purpose, all of these things that feel so enormous and overwhelming and consuming in your daily life, all of these problems that create stress and anxiety and keep you awake at night, are infinitely small compared to the creative power available to you. The consciousness that can hold and observe and contain 2 trillion galaxies, each one a vast island universe with hundreds of billions of stars, can certainly handle your specific situation from the perspective of infinite consciousness. From the view of the I am awareness that you truly are, your problems are already solved. Not will be solved if you work hard enough. Not might be solved if you're lucky. Already solved. The solution, the manifestation, the fulfilled desire exists right now in the quantum field as a real possibility, as an actual timeline, as a specific frequency. The version of reality where you have abundant wealth, perfect health, loving relationships, creative fulfillment, whatever you specifically desire, that version already exists. It's not theoretical. It's not maybe someday, if everything works out. It's there right now, as real and as actual as the reality you're currently experiencing. The only difference between the reality you're experiencing now and the reality you want to experience is observation. Which reality, which frequency, which timeline are you choosing to observe? Which assumptions are you maintaining? Which feelings are you sustaining? Which state of consciousness are you habitually occupying? Because whichever reality you observe with sustained attention and feeling, that's the reality that must manifest in your 3-dimensional physical experience. This is law. This is not optional or uncertain. The quantum field must collapse into the form that matches your sustained observation. The universe is vast, spread across billions of light years containing 2 trillion galaxies, to show you the scale of creative power available to you. Every single star among the uncountable trillions of stars is a possibility waiting to be actualized. Every galaxy among the 2 trillion galaxies is a realm of potential waiting to be explored and experienced. Every quantum fluctuation, every tiny vibration in the quantum field is an opportunity for consciousness to collapse infinite possibility into specific experience. And you, sitting here right now reading these words, you are the consciousness that does the collapsing. You are the observer whose observation creates reality. You are the awareness in which all of space and all of time appears as experience. The 2 trillion galaxies are not proof of your insignificance in comparison to the vastness of the cosmos. They're proof of your infinite significance as the consciousness that contains the cosmos. You are not a speck of dust floating in the universe. You are the universe. Itself, infinite creative consciousness, experiencing itself from one particular point of view, playing the game of being human, pretending temporarily to be limited so that the journey of remembering your limitless nature becomes meaningful. And now that you know this, now that you've been reminded of this, now that you've remembered what you truly are beneath the surface appearance of being a separate, limited person, the only question that remains is, what will you choose to observe into existence? What version of reality will you select from the infinite menu of possibilities? What state of consciousness will you occupy and sustain until the three-dimensional world reorganizes itself to mirror it back to you in physical form? Your life problems, I want to emphasize this again because it's so important. Your life problems seem enormous when you're lost in them, when you're identified with them, when you believe they're solid and real and unchangeable. But they're smaller than a single grain of sand, actually infinitely smaller, compared to the 2 trillion galaxies of infinite solutions already present in the field of consciousness you command. The universe has already demonstrated beyond any possible doubt its capacity for infinite creation. 2 trillion galaxies, each one a testament to the power of consciousness to manifest form from formless potential, to organize energy and matter into coherent structures, to create beauty and complexity and life from quantum fluctuations in the void. That same power, that same consciousness, that same creative force is your power, is your consciousness, is your creative force. The only difference, the only thing that separates you from experiencing yourself as that infinite power is awareness. Are you aware of what you truly are? Are you willing to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled, regardless of current physical circumstances that seem to contradict it? Are you ready to stop begging and start selecting, stop hoping and start knowing, stop trying and start being? Every single desire you've ever had, every dream you've held in your heart, every wish you've whispered to yourself in quiet moments, every version of yourself you've imagined becoming, every possibility you've fantasized about already exists, not as a maybe, not as a possibility that might happen if you're lucky and work hard and everything falls into place. It exists right now as a real configuration in the quantum field, as an actual timeline in the 4th dimension, as a specific frequency you can tune into. The version of you living that reality, experiencing that fulfilled desire, being that person you want to become, is as real in the quantum field as the version of you reading these words is real in your current experience. Both versions exist simultaneously in the eternal now of consciousness. The only question, the only thing that determines which version you experience in three-dimensional physical form, is which version are you going to give your sustained attention to? Which reality are you going to assume is true for you? Which frequency are you going to tune your consciousness to? Because whichever one you assume with feeling, whichever one you occupy as a state of consciousness, whichever one you feel as real now in your awareness, that's the one that will become your experienced reality in physical form. The three-dimensional world has no choice in this matter. It's not an independent reality that might or might not cooperate with your desires. It's a projection from consciousness. It must mirror your inner state. This is law as invariable as any law of physics. This is how the universe works at the most fundamental level. The 2 trillion galaxies prove it beyond doubt. They exist as physical manifestations because consciousness observes them into form. Your reality exists as physical manifestation because you observe it into form through your sustained assumptions and feelings. Change the observation, change the assumption, change the feeling, and the reality must change to match. Change the observation, change the reality. It's that simple and that profound. The cosmos is waiting, and I mean this literally, not metaphorically, for you to wake up to your infinite nature. The 2 trillion galaxies are not separate, objects existing independently out there in space. They're aspects of your own infinite being, expressions of your own consciousness, thoughts in your infinite mind, waiting for you to recognize them as yourself, waiting for the next great thing you're ready to observe into existence, waiting for you to remember that you're not a limited person having a limited experience in a vast and indifferent universe, but infinite consciousness having a temporary human adventure. The universe doesn't need you to be small. That's not what makes the game work. What makes the game work is consciousness temporarily forgetting its infinite nature, then gradually remembering, then fully awakening to what it truly is. The universe needs you to be what you truly are. Infinite consciousness playing in the field of infinite possibilities, creating and experiencing and exploring the endless permutations and combinations of form that can arise from formless potential. Everything you've ever wanted, every version of yourself you've ever dreamed of becoming, every reality you've ever desired to experience already exists in the quantum field. The question is no longer whether these things are possible, or whether you deserve them, or whether you can have them. The question is simply whether you're ready to assume you already have them, whether you're willing to occupy that state of consciousness now regardless of current physical evidence. The vastness of the universe, those 2 trillion galaxies spread across distances that light takes billions of years to cross, is not your enemy. It's not evidence that you're insignificant or powerless or separate from creative force. It's your ally. It's your proof. It's your guarantee. It's evidence that there's more than enough room in reality for every desire to be fulfilled, more than enough resources for every need to be met, more than enough creative power for every dream to manifest, more than enough space in the field of infinite possibilities for your specific desire to exist and be selected and be experienced. Stop worrying about how your manifestation will happen. Stop trying to figure out the path or force specific doors open or manipulate circumstances through personal effort alone. Start occupying the state of consciousness where your desire is already fulfilled. Start feeling now what you would feel if your dream were already real. Start being now who you would be if your wish were already granted. The bridge of incidents, the sequence of events and encounters and opportunities that will externalize your inner state, forms instantaneously in consciousness the moment you make the assumption and sustain it with feeling. Your only job is to walk across that bridge one present moment at a time, maintaining the inner conviction regardless of temporary outer evidence. Trusting that every step is guided by the same intelligence that orchestrates the movements and interactions of 2 trillion galaxies through the vastness of space and time, without ever making a mistake or losing track of a single atom. This is not philosophy to ponder. This is not interesting information to file away and maybe think about occasionally. This is truth to embody right here, right now. Right now, in this present moment, you have a choice, a real choice that will determine the direction of your entire life from this point forward. You can close this video and go back to seeing yourself as you've always seen yourself, as a small, separate, limited being existing inside a vast, indifferent universe, subject to forces beyond your control. Hoping things work out, but expecting struggle and limitation. You can go back to identifying with your personal story, your limitations, your past failures, your current circumstances. You can go back to believing that the external world is solid and fixed and independent of your consciousness, that you're essentially powerless to change your fundamental reality, that you're a victim of circumstance and luck and external forces. That's one choice, and it's the choice most people make because it's familiar and it doesn't require you to challenge your fundamental assumptions about reality. Or you can recognize what these words are pointing to, not just intellectually, but at the deepest level of your being. You can recognize that the 2 trillion galaxies exist in your consciousness, not out there in some external space independent of awareness. You can recognize that the infinite field of creative potential is not somewhere else distant and unavailable. It's what you are in your deepest nature beneath the surface appearance of being a limited person. You can recognize that every moment of every day you are selecting which reality to experience through the assumptions you hold and the feelings you maintain, that you're creating your reality right now, whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. Most people do this unconsciously, creating by default rather than by deliberate choice, wondering why life feels so random and difficult. Not understanding that they're generating their experience through unconscious assumptions and habitual states of consciousness. But you now know better. You know the mechanism, you know the secret, you know the truth that sets you free from the illusion of limitation and separation. Consciousness creates reality. Observation collapses infinite possibility into specific experience. Assumption hardened into conviction becomes fact. This is how the universe works at the fundamental level beneath all appearances. This is not subject to your belief or disbelief. This is law, operating with mathematical precision whether you accept it or not. The only question that remains is whether you'll use this knowledge consciously and deliberately to create the reality you actually want to experience, or whether you'll continue creating by accident, by default, by unconscious habitual patterns, getting results you don't want, and wondering why life is so difficult. I want you to do something right now. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Just do it. Write in the comments, I am the universe. Not as a question, not as a hope, not as something you wish were true but doubt, but as a powerful declaration of what you're recognizing to be true. Write it with conviction. I am the universe. Let this be your conscious acknowledgement, your deliberate choice, your formal declaration to yourself and to the infinite intelligence that orchestrates reality, that you're not separate from the creative power that generates galaxies. You are that power. You are not a small observer watching consciousness from the outside. You are the consciousness in which all things arise and exist and dissolve. You are not a limited temporary person who has awareness. You are the infinite awareness having a temporary human experience, playing the role of a person for the adventure of it. Write it, feel it, know it, mean it with every fiber of your being. I am the universe. This is not arrogance or delusion or wishful thinking. This is recognition of what has always been true but temporarily forgotten. This is remembering what you are beneath the mask of personality. This is awakening from the dream of separation and limitation into the reality of your infinite nature. Now, before we conclude, I want to address something practical that comes up for everyone who begins to work with these principles. You might be wondering, if I'm infinite consciousness and reality is a projection from awareness, and I can select any reality I want from the quantum field, why can't I just snap my fingers and instantly manifest anything I desire? Why is there still effort involved? Why does it sometimes take time? Why do I still have to take action in the three-dimensional world? These are legitimate questions, and they deserve real answers. The truth is that you do create your reality instantly in consciousness. The moment you make an assumption with feeling, the moment you occupy a new state of consciousness, the bridge of incidence forms instantaneously on the causal level. Your desire is fulfilled immediately in the fourth dimension. But remember, you're playing a game here. Your consciousness pretending to be a limited human having an experience in space and time. Part of the game, part of what makes it interesting and meaningful is the unfolding process, the journey from assumption to manifestation, the sequence of events in linear time that bridges the inner conviction to outer form. If everything manifested instantly the moment you thought about it, life would be chaotic and meaningless. You'd manifest your passing moods and fleeting fears just as quickly as your genuine desires. There'd be no consistency, no stability, no sense of cause and effect, no way to learn and grow. The time lag, the interval between assumption and manifestation, serves several important purposes. First, it acts as a buffer, a safety mechanism that prevents every random thought from immediately becoming reality. Second, it creates space for you to demonstrate faith, to prove to yourself that you can maintain a state of consciousness even when outer circumstances haven't yet conformed. Third, it allows the universe to arrange all the necessary elements in the most elegant and efficient way. Fourth, it makes the journey meaningful. The process of maintaining your assumption, of living in the wish fulfilled, of trusting despite lack of immediate evidence. That's where the transformation happens. That's where you actually become the person who naturally experiences what you desire. The outer manifestation is almost secondary. The real magic is the inner transformation that happens as you persist in occupying the state of consciousness that matches your desire. As for action, yes, you will take action in the three-dimensional world, but it's a very different kind of action when it flows from the state of the wish fulfilled compared to action that comes from lack and desperation. When you're occupying the consciousness of already having what you want, your actions become inspired rather than forced. You do things because they feel natural and aligned, not because you're desperately trying to make something happen. The actions you take feel effortless because they're expressions of your state rather than attempts to change your state. You're not working to get something you don't have. You're expressing what you already are. There's a lightness to it, a flow, a sense of being moved by intelligence greater than your conscious mind rather than pushing against resistance. And interestingly, when you're in this state, you often find that less action is required to produce greater results. Doors open that you didn't even know existed People offer help without you asking. Opportunities align in ways that seem like magic but are actually just the quantum field reorganizing itself to match your consciousness. The 2 trillion galaxies are yours, not in the sense of ownership, but in the sense that they arise in your consciousness. They are thoughts in your infinite mind. They are experiences in your awareness. The infinite field of consciousness that generates and contains and experiences all of reality is not something separate from you. It's what you are. Every possible reality, every potential timeline, every conceivable outcome exists right now in the quantum field of infinite possibilities that is your true nature. And here's something profound to contemplate as we move toward the conclusion. Those 2 trillion galaxies, as vast as they are, represent only the observable universe, only the portion of reality we can detect with our instruments. Only the light that's had time to reach us since the beginning of measurable time. Beyond the observable universe, beyond the cosmic horizon, there may be infinitely more galaxies, infinitely more space, infinitely more complexity. The universe may be literally infinite in extent, stretching on forever in all directions, containing not just trillions but infinite galaxies, infinite possibilities, infinite variations on the theme of existence. And even this potentially infinite physical universe is just one possible manifestation of consciousness, one way awareness can organize itself into form. Quantum physics suggests the possibility of many worlds, parallel universes, alternate timelines, all existing simultaneously in superposition. Every time a quantum event occurs with multiple possible outcomes, the universe may split into parallel branches where each outcome happens. If this interpretation is correct, there are infinite parallel versions of you right now, infinite timelines, infinite realities, all existing simultaneously in the greater quantum multiverse. And all of these infinite possibilities, all of these parallel universes, all of these timelines, they all exist within consciousness. They're all thoughts in the infinite mind. They're all dreams being dreamed by the one awareness that you are in your deepest nature. The implications are staggering. Not only can you select which version of your life to experience in this timeline, but you're simultaneously experiencing all possible versions of your life across infinite parallel timelines. The you that you experience as your conscious self is just one focal point of awareness among infinite focal points, all of them you, all of them consciousness exploring itself through every conceivable variation. This raises fascinating questions. When you shift your state of consciousness and manifest a new reality, are you changing your current timeline? Or are you shifting your awareness to a parallel timeline where what you desire already exists? The answer might be that these are two ways of describing the same phenomenon. From one perspective, you're changing your reality by changing your consciousness. From another perspective, you're shifting between parallel realities by tuning your consciousness to different frequencies. Both descriptions point to the same underlying truth. Consciousness determines which reality you experience. The mechanism doesn't matter as much as the practical application. Assume the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it as real now. Maintain that feeling regardless of current circumstances, and watch as your experienced reality shifts to match your inner state. Whether you conceptualize that as changing your timeline or jumping to a parallel timeline where your desire is already fulfilled. What matters, what really matters, is that you understand and embody this truth. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're not at the mercy of external forces. You're not limited by your past or your current situation. You are infinite consciousness having a temporary human experience, and the power to select which experience you have, which reality you inhabit, which timeline you occupy, is yours right now. In this moment, the 2 trillion galaxies we can observe, and the infinite possibilities beyond them, are all expressions of the same consciousness that you are. The creative power that generates entire universes is not distant or separate or unavailable to you. It's what you fundamentally are beneath the mask of personality, beneath the role you're playing, beneath the temporary forgetting that makes this human adventure possible and meaningful. Choose wisely what you're going to select from that infinite menu. Choose deliberately. Choose consciously. Assume boldly the reality you want to experience. Occupy fully the state of consciousness where your desire is already fulfilled. Sustain that state with unwavering conviction regardless of what temporary physical evidence suggests. And then watch, observe, Witness as the cosmos conspires, as the quantum field reorganizes itself, as the three-dimensional world rearranges its component parts to deliver exactly what you've selected from the infinite menu of existence. This is not magic. This is not violation of natural law. This is natural law operating at the deepest level of reality. This is how consciousness creates experience. This is how the universe actually works beneath the surface appearance of solid, independent objects. Let me leave you with one final contemplation, one last perspective that brings everything full circle back to those 2 trillion galaxies we started with. Each galaxy we can observe is separated from us by vast distances of space and time. The light from distant galaxies has traveled for billions of years to reach our telescopes. We're seeing them as they were billions of years ago, looking back through time as we look out through space. Some of those galaxies may no longer exist in the form we observe them. They may have changed, evolved, merged with other galaxies, been torn apart by cosmic forces. We're seeing ancient light, a historical record, a memory of what was. But here's the profound part. In the quantum field, in the 4th dimension of consciousness, all of those galaxies exist, not in the past, but in the eternal now. The galaxy as it was 10 billion years ago, as it is now in its current state, as it will be 10 billion years in the future, all of these exist simultaneously in the timeless present of consciousness. Past, present, and future are all equally real, all equally accessible, all existing right now in superposition until consciousness selects which moment to observe and experience. When you look at a distant galaxy through a telescope, you're not just seeing the past, you're participating in creating which past existed, which timeline manifested, which version of that galaxy's history became real through your observation. The act of looking backward through time is simultaneously an act of creating what you're looking at. This seems impossible from the perspective of ordinary consciousness that experiences time as a linear flow from past through present to future. But from the perspective of quantum consciousness, from the view of awareness operating in the 4th dimension, it makes perfect sense. All times exist simultaneously. Observation selects which time to experience. Looking at the past is just another form of observation, another way consciousness interacts with the quantum field to collapse infinite possibility into specific experience. You're not discovering a past that already happened independently. You're creating the past through your present observation of it, just as you're creating the future through your present assumptions about it. This means that even your personal past, your history, your story about who you've been and what you've experienced exists in quantum superposition until you observe it and collapse it into a specific narrative. You can literally change your past by changing how you remember it, how you interpret it, what meaning you assign to it. This isn't about denying what happened or lying to yourself about your experiences. It's about recognizing that your past, like the distant galaxies, exists in superposition with multiple possible interpretations, multiple possible meanings, multiple possible lessons and outcomes. By changing your relationship to your past, by releasing old stories that no longer serve you, by reinterpreting old experiences through the lens of your awakened consciousness, you can actually change the causal chain that leads to your present, effectively altering your timeline at the quantum level. The person you were, like the galaxy billions of light years away, exists in superposition until you observe and define who that person was through your current consciousness. This is why forgiveness is so powerful. This is why releasing judgment about your past is so transformative. This is why it's never too late to have a happy childhood, as one teacher put it. You're not just changing your feelings about the past. You're actually collapsing different possibilities from the quantum field, selecting a different version of your history, tuning to a frequency where the past happened differently, not in its external events, but in its meaning and its effects on who you are now. And when you change the past in consciousness, when you select a different timeline, a different interpretation, a different meaning, everything that flows from that past automatically adjusts. The person you are now, the opportunities available to you, the future unfolding before you, all of it shifts to match the new past you've selected from infinite possibility. This is advanced manifestation, working not just with your future, but with your entire timeline, past, present, and future. Recognizing that all of it exists in consciousness and all of it can be selected, shaped, and experienced according to your assumptions and your state of being. So when I say the 2 trillion galaxies are proof of your infinite creative power, I mean it at every level. At the level of vast cosmic scale showing you the magnitude of what consciousness can create. At the level of quantum mechanics showing you that observation creates reality. At the level of the holographic principle showing you that you are the screen on which reality projects. At the level of parallel universes showing you that infinite versions of every possibility exist simultaneously. At the level of timeless consciousness showing you that you can work with past, present, and future all at once because they all exist now in the eternal present of awareness. Every angle, every perspective, every level of analysis points to the same fundamental truth. You are not a small, separate, limited being. You are infinite consciousness temporarily pretending to be limited so that the game of life remains interesting and meaningful. And now that you know the rules of the game, now that you understand how it works, now that you've been reminded of what you truly are, you can play at a completely different level. You can stop being a victim and become a conscious creator. You can stop hoping and start knowing. You can stop struggling and start flowing. You can stop feeling small and start embodying your infinite nature. The journey from here forward is about integration, about taking this understanding and making it your living reality, about actually occupying the state of consciousness that matches your desired experience rather than just intellectually knowing that it's possible. The knowing is important, the understanding is crucial, but it's the doing, the being, the sustained assumption, the consistent occupation of the wish-fulfilled state. That's where the transformation actually happens. This is not information to collect. This is truth to embody. This is power to claim. This is your nature to remember and express in every moment of your life. The universe is waiting for you to step fully into this recognition. The quantum field is responding to your every assumption and feeling. The 2 trillion galaxies are swirling in the infinite mind that you are, ready to manifest whatever reality you select through your consciousness. Everything is in place. Everything is ready. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to let go of the old limited identity and step fully into your infinite nature. Are you ready to stop being the person who struggles and becomes the person who flows? Are you ready to stop being the person who lacks and becomes the person who has? Are you ready to stop being the person who hopes and becomes the person who knows? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The universe is yours. Choose now. Be now. Know now what you truly are. Infinite consciousness, creating reality moment by moment. This is the beginning of everything you've been preparing for. This is when everything changes, when you stop being a victim and become a conscious creator. Welcome home to your infinite nature. Welcome to the understanding that the 2 trillion galaxies are proof of your infinite creative power as consciousness itself. This is your birthright. This is your eternal truth beyond all temporary illusion. Remember now. Choose now. Be what you truly are, eternally. The universe is yours, completely and totally. Every possible reality is yours. Choose boldly, assume powerfully. Feel deeply the truth of your infinite being coursing through your awareness right now. Watch as the cosmos delivers exactly what you've selected from infinite possibilities. Welcome home to consciousness itself.